Hey guys, welcome to the Rosebud Thorns for March. What did I say? 10th to 15th, something like that. That's this week. Yes, 10th to 15th from our clients that have sent them in. So far, we haven't gotten any emailed ones in from listeners, but that's okay. You know, maybe they're going to come eventually.
We're hoping. We are hoping that they show up eventually.
But for now, I love all the ones that are coming in from our clients because I love hearing how everything is going for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to start out today with Chris. Chris's rose this week was nutrition continuing to improve, starting to hit calorie targets more consistently with whole foods. And I could agree with that. I went through them this week and it was absolutely amazing. So awesome job this week.
That's awesome.
Bud, so what's starting to come along for him is while I'm hitting my calorie targets, I'm still having trouble hitting my protein targets. I started adding a scoop of protein powder to my shake in the mornings to help me get where I need to be. Awesome. Yeah, I know we had talked about that too, just simple ways that we could add to the things we're already doing. Shakes are already in the wheelhouse, so just adding that protein to the shakes has started to bring those totals up, which is awesome. Really good
And he
job there.
and he could just look at just in the future maybe adding more bulk to his current meals. But if he's
Yeah,
already eating a shake, that was easy. I just wanted to add that in for anybody that's wondering how do I go about adding more protein.
yeah, well, and the same thing can be said for carbohydrates and fats too. If we notice that we're struggling to hit any one of those macros, if we are doing macro-based calorie tracking, then starting to look at increasing just the portion sizes of what we're already doing to help bring those levels up is honestly the easiest and most effective way to do it. So yeah, couldn't agree more. And then Chris's Thorn this week, still recovering from being sick. I get that. Energy levels have been low, but it's starting to come around. Feel good every time I go to the gym. So scale back the weight quite a bit so I can still go and spend time in the gym and get the reps in. So I know we've talked about this before. When we are recovering from illness, a lot of times we feel like we really want to get back into the gym, get back into that routine, which is important for the mental health. But then keeping in mind too that as we're in that recovery phase, until we can start kind of getting calorie levels up where they were and start to see those rebounds in energy, recovery really is your best friend. So making sure that we're spending the time we need to getting rest and recovery and focusing more on the modalities of rest and recovery that we do to allow us to bounce back faster. Super important when we are sick because I know it is that cold and flu season right now.
Yeah, and he is talking about like how he's scaling back on weights, which is
Yeah.
really it's about going through the motions and just getting the body moving again as we're starting to rebuild those energy levels. Um, and so not jumping necessarily back into the weights that we were at, I think is really important to note.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to go right back into a couple 100 pound squat when we're just coming off an illness. That's no bueno. That's a bad day.
No bueno indeed. Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so moving on, we've got Randy. Randy says his rose is the extra reps that he's doing, his bud, heavier weights and more reps. And he has no thorn this week. And to be honest, I don't think Randy should have a thorn this week because I keep getting his weight updates and it's just going in an amazing direction. It's exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah, and I do want to say this too. Um, Something that Randy has worked on for a long time and something that we have been working on with Randy for quite a while here is really focusing on staying within those rep ranges. So when we as your coaches are giving you specific rep ranges for workouts, there's reasons behind why we are doing that. It's never just shoot from the hip. We're just picking numbers out of the air. So again, these are conversations that we've had in the past, and I can see going through Randy's workouts how well those talks have gone because we really are picking up the idea that we might be challenging certain systems a little bit differently depending on your goals. So again, if you guys have questions about the rep ranges, why we do the things we do, or why we might be suggesting things the way we suggest them, definitely reach out. We like to give you guys that knowledge. So I know Randy did, and as soon as we gave him that knowledge, he's like, okay, that makes sense, and it's been amazing ever since. So I just want to toss that out there.
That's exactly how I operate. I like to know the why behind things. I'm quite stubborn in the sense I'm not going to do something until I understand why I'm doing it. So,
Well, and I think that goes for a lot of people, right? It's that control aspect of, okay, well, I understand that you want me to do it, but why? What will be the differences if I change, say, from a 6 to 10 rep range to a 10 to 15 rep range? Well, there's a lot of differences between those. And then when we start to look at recovery profile, see between sets and all the fun things that go along with that, it really does break down to pretty good science here. So we can always explain that for you guys.
It's awesome. Okay, so Bonnie says her rows is her machine lever leg press went very well.
Nice.
So that's awesome. We've started to use a little bit more machines at the gym, which is a different way of training than what we've been doing for a long time. Bud, the cable goblet squat is coming along well. That's a tough one, right? If we're doing that properly, that can be really challenging. And Thorn, my alternating dumbbell chest press is still giving me grief at 25 pounds. It's a hard exercise, and we've talked about, you know, where we put our exercises in a workout program and how that can really change our ability to perform in them. So this is Bonnie's last week in her current program. And this exercise, the alternating dumbbell chest press, is right at the end of one of her days. And we don't do a lot of chest training. So I'm excited to see what happens for next week when she just gets a regular dumbbell bench press and it's at the beginning of her workout.
So it's funny. That's exactly what I was going to say because I'm again assumptions are being made because I didn't make this set of workouts for Bonnie. So are we doing one arm, other arm, and then both together?
Yes, yeah, that's what's
Okay.
happening.
So this is a beautiful exercise for anybody that has had the joy of doing it because it really does pre-fatigue those muscles beautifully, which is why typically rep ranges are a little bit lower in it. So that was actually going to be my exact suggestion, and I love that we have the same brainwave going because when we go from that alternating double to a single, and then we go straight into a single, the weights are going to come up ridiculously fast because you are gaining that strength, but you're doing it more in the endurance realm when we're doing this one, especially at the end of a workout. So putting this when you're going to be fresh at the start and just bringing that press up, it's going to be interesting, like you said, to see those weights come up. And yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, well,
Very
and
cool.
we just went over form when I saw her last in person. We just went over form in regards to how do I get these dumbbells that are going to be really crazy heavy up when maybe I can't necessarily push them right for my chest with where my shoulders are at. So we've talked about like placing them on our knees and utilizing the momentum from our knees as we come back in order to get those weights up to start. Because once they're up, usually you're usually okay to good to go. But yeah, so that was one of the next things is, you know, as those weights are going to come up a lot faster, how do I get them up when I don't know, like I don't necessarily have a spotter at the gym?
No, that's great, and it's a really good point to touch on too because we have lots of people, lots of athletes, lots of people that we work with that are lifting those heavy singles on their own. So how do we do that safely and how do we build to the point where we can support that movement safely? And a lot of that comes back to what we train our lats to do. And I know with Bonnie specifically, I know you've worked a lot on learning to engage those lats and working on that stability through the lats, which is exactly what you need when you're kicking those weights back to slow them down from going too far when we kick over. So again, the focus when we're doing that is to lean into those lats, keep that chest lifted, and support your chest with those lats. So that's beautiful. Very cool.
Awesome.
All right. Next up, we got Willow. I'm so busy and only getting busier. That is your rose. I love it. Okay, so busy and getting busier is a rose. So this is exciting. So if we are, you know, if we are working towards the goal of creating impact and creating change, being busy is a good thing. So that is awesome. Her bud is really amazed at my body and how it's moving so much better than even a couple months ago. I'm lifting heavier things too. Let's go. I love it, Willow. And the thorn for Willow this week, I'm struggling with my new schedule and can't seem to get myself balanced in the change. I noticed I'm the first thing I tend to wipe off my priority list and I want to bring that back. Isn't that so true? I can feel that when we get busy, especially if it's something that we are excited about, that we're, you know, really gets us going, ignites us when we're on that journey. Um, you want to pour yourself into it. But when we pour ourselves fully into whatever that focus is, lots of times the focus that we've had previously, which might have been that self-care, which might have been those items that really give us our zen moments, bring that energy back into our body. Sometimes that's the first things to go. And I know, you know, being able to find that balance can be very tricky for a lot of people. So I mean, for balancing it and finding what works for you, there's lots of ways that we can look at that. But the most simple one for me is where do you get the most bang for your buck as far as something that gives, like, fills your cup, something that gives you that energy back. Like for me, it's spending time with my family. So when I'm not at work, I try and spend that time, be active in my life with my family. Like we built a snowport last weekend. Kayla was coloring with the kids. Like we were doing the things that filled the cup, right? So I guess my question and my challenge for you is to find the things in your day that give you the most bang for your buck for that refilling of the cup for that, you know. So even if we don't get to spend a ton of time specifically on ourselves, the time that we do get to allocate towards that is spent in a way that creates the most impact, I guess would be the way that I would say. So starting to look for those items that really make you feel like, holy crap, like that was really fulfilling. That really brought those energy levels back up.
So the other thing that I wanted to suggest is going back to your time inventory. I know Willow's done this in the past, but inventorying her time, where are we spending our time? You know, I know that she's got a lot of things going. So she's got a couple jobs on the go now, as well as choir and volunteering. Like I know she's got a lot on the go. So go back to your time inventory and see where are you spending your time. I know that she did a really great job of getting rid of a lot of time wasters before, like things where she was playing like, you know, a little bit of an online game or scrolling social media and those kinds of things. But I would caution you to go back and see where might I be wasting time, where might I be having some leaks in my timing, and where could I maybe cinch things up a little bit more, meaning like, oh, okay, well, like I'll use myself as an example. If you look at my day today, it actually looks like there's next to nothing on my schedule all morning. However, I always have something to do. There's always, as an entrepreneur, there's always work to do. So Mike always makes fun of me and says that I can make busy work all the time, right? So I can sit there and I can draw out tasks that take forever. Or if I'm given a shorter amount of time, maybe I'll cinch in my time and just be more efficient at it. So starting to think about, do I need as much time as I'm allowing myself, or can I start to chunk my time out and be more efficient at what I'm doing in that respect? The other place that I would suggest is maybe starting to create some boundaries. Like maybe it's kids are in bed by this time, and you know, from 8:30 to 9 o'clock, that half hour is my time. I think often, especially when we're trying to carve out time for our workouts, because I know that that's what she's referring to in this. When we're trying to carve that time out, we think, oh, I need an hour. But what if you could do 15 minutes? What if you could do 30 minutes? Like start building the habit long before we start looking at how much time I need to chunk out. So the habit is I need to just establish 10 or 15 minutes where I take time for myself to, maybe I just do my body weight squats in that 10 or 15 minutes with some general push-ups, or whatever it is I want to fill that time with. And then over the course of time here, I start to build on that and go, okay, my 15 minutes is going to turn into 20. That's going to turn into 25. Like, and just starting to elongate that time rather than thinking, oh, it has to be this whole hour and I can't find an hour.
Oh, I love that. And the other thing that I was just kind of piggybacking on that is because your rose was I'm so busy and I'm only getting busier, and then our thorn is we're not finding balance and we're not able to kind of figure out the scheduling that's going to work for us. So again, similar to that time inventory, but taking note of everything that you're saying yes to, right? Because again, everything in our lives is a choice. We get to choose where we allocate our time, where we put our effort, where we put our focus. That is all a choice. That is an individual choice as a person. Now, of course, there's things that we don't really have the choice for, being parents, where it's like, okay, we need to show up every time for these kids, and that's okay. But looking at the things that we'll call it the optional things, or the things that come into our lives that we are saying yes to, and seeing if it's in alignment with our goals and where we want to go, right? So just making sure that the things that we are saying yes to, the things that we're agreeing to, the things that we're bringing into our lives are things that we want to see more of in our lives, right? Because if we're saying yes to everything and it isn't something that serves us, fills our cup, or gives us purpose, then why are we saying yes in the first place to these things? Right? Is it because we want to please everybody? Is it because we're so conditioned to say yes because that is the person that we are? Then maybe questioning that, and again, it doesn't mean that you can't say yes to things, but I'm just getting that thought process of, am I saying yes to everything because I'm afraid to say no, or is this something that I truly want to be putting my time and effort into? So just having that critical thinking anytime that we are saying yes to things is, I think, important for everybody moving forward.
I have one more thing to note on there is just the idea of balance. I think that we think that home life and work life should be equal balance and it should all equal out. But there has to be, I don't want like the word balance. I think it's a balancing act. It's this homework balancing act where I'm okay spending a little bit more time over there. And it's about the quality time, not the quantity time, right? So start thinking about, it's not about balance, it's about that quality time with the things that are important, not necessarily the quantity. At least that's something that's really come to mind for myself.
Yeah, love it.
All right. Ashley says her Rose workouts, really enjoying them. And she's super crushing them too, by the way. Bud, getting enough protein and finding different ways to do so. So it is coming along for her that her protein is slowly developing. And her Thorn is stopping after one sugary snack. You know what? That's a hard one. And we can go into great depth with this. So we'll try to keep it short and sweet without it being too overwhelming. So one sugary snack, well, sugar gives us a dopamine hit and it makes us feel good and it makes us want more sugar. So that's something to note. Also, our gut bacteria. So within about 15 minutes or so of consuming sugar, the gut bacteria starts to increase hunger and looking for more sugar. Right? They love that sugar. It helps them feed and fester and all those wonderful things for the good and the bad bacteria. So it's not one way or the other. So starting to understand that sometimes our gut is determining what our brain is saying it wants, and it's going to increase the desire for it. So much like hunger, cravings come in waves. If you can outlast them, they will go away. Same thing with hunger. If you outlast that hunger feeling, eventually it goes away. It does come back. Same thing with cravings. They do come back. But it is hard to stop and say no, especially like think about the holidays when you've got a whole tray full of goodies.
Okay. When we are looking at sugar is one of those, like you're saying, it's that instant dopamine hit. It is our brain saying we love this. It is your gut bacteria. It's that brain gut access that is saying yes to this, right? So I love that whole thought process of, is this something that we want in our lives and our diets, or is this something that, we're just reaching for? Is it a habit, right? So I challenge people, and I do this all the time where we're talking about sugar. I'm like, okay, I'm not telling you can't have sugar, like 100%. If you're gonna have some sugar, do your thing. But I want to have that moment of, is it sugar that we're specifically looking for? Or is this just habitual? Are we just reaching for something out of old hat because we've always done this previously? And if it's something that we've done previously, is it a habit that we can change slowly over time? Well, every habit we have can be changed slowly over time. So I love the fact that she says, stopping after just one sugary snack, because again, this sounds like typically we'd be reaching for multiple of these things. Okay, that's what it is. It used to be an old habit, reaching for these things and keeping going for them. So maybe instead of having like all of the snacks available, maybe we just buy, if we're going to buy something that's sugary, buying like singles of whatever they are. So then if you do have it, you literally only have one in the house, right? So then it kind of forces you to slow that down so there isn't more to reach for. That would be one way that you could tackle it. So this is similar to when we do like the kitchen cleanups, when we talk about starting to remove the foods that tempt us from within reach, more or less. The same idea, but if we are getting those sugary snacks, if we are getting things like that, maybe we're only buying the single serving of it. So then you don't have an option. You get the one and that's all you get. So then we can like slowly wean ourselves away from that. And again, our taste buds cycle, what is it, every 7 or every 14 days?
Every 10 to 14 days.
There we go. So taste buds are cycling every 10 to 14 days. So if we can stave off those sugar cravings, again, like Kayla said, if you are, same thing for hunger. If you're hungry, those hunger cues, those hunger pangs will go away if you ignore them for long enough. Same thing goes for sugar. So if we are starting to get ourselves away from these sugary snacks, maybe it is, trying to cold turkey it for a 2-week period, knowing that after that 2-week period, we start to lose the want for these items. We actually had a client recently reach out during our power calls, and they said that they were surprised that they no longer want the snacks that they used to because they've just been staying away from them. And that again speaks to, okay, well, if we stay away from these things for long enough, we start to lose the urge to reach for them, which is powerful when we are on that journey for change. So again, I'm not saying change everything at once. You guys will never hear us say we're going to change everything. You can't eat any more sugar. You'll never hear us say that. But what we will say is if we want this change over time, we need to start taking steps towards that change. So if a step
100%.
towards that change for you means, again, buying a single or limiting the amount of these snacks that we have within reach, maybe that's a great place to start. Or maybe it's starting with like lower sugar items, just things that are still going to give you that little bit of a fix, but it isn't as high in that sugar as something else might be.
So if we think of highly palatable foods and foods that we enjoy, like sugary items, for some people that's chips, like it can be whatever those highly palatable foods are. They are highly palatable, meaning that we can consistently consume them because there's a high calorie value to them and they taste good. They give us feel good endorphins. Sometimes there's emotional context, like, oh, these are my mom's best cookies, whatever they are. So there's a lot of things that we associate with maybe this one treat that is kind of making this treat way bigger. If you can kind of think about that. For some people, they associate chips with relaxation because I'm sitting down and I'm finally taking time for myself and I'm watching a movie or whatever, and that's what the chip is for me. For some people, that the chip is that hand to mouth because, oh, I used to smoke cigarettes, and that's that habit, that repetition of hand to mouth. Whatever that is, that we can kind of start to look at what is causing me to reach for this. What are the other underlying emotional causes for that as well? But I like what you were saying about staying away from things. One thing that Ashley and I have not talked about because I wasn't sure if we were ready to talk about this, but it's the idea of going on a sugar detox. So a sugar detox is essentially like 5 to 7 days staying away from sugar and fruit, things that have higher sugar items in them, that are that sweet palate. And if you can do that for 5 to 7 days, usually the first 2 to 3 days is pretty like, oh, my cravings are through the roof, because the body's like looking for more of them. But after that 2 to 3 days, you don't really start to crave them anymore. The cravings go away, things dissipate. And after about 5 to 7 days, you'll notice that, an apple all of a sudden tastes so incredibly sweet. Just like a carrot, which you never would have thought a carrot is so dang sweet. And you eat it and you're like, wow, I don't know that I could eat another carrot because it's so sweet, because our taste buds really begin to change and shift. And if we can change and shift those taste buds, what we might notice is that we're not as easily wanting to gravitate towards those foods that we once loved and desired. And they don't necessarily taste nearly the same. Like maybe they're too sugary. Like I'll give you the example. I used to love Cadbury cream eggs, and they come out now, right? It's like it's Easter time. So the Cadbury cream eggs are coming out and I'm like, oh, I got to have a Cadbury cream egg. And the minute I bite into it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this thing is just like sugar on steroids. It's so sweet. The chocolate isn't even good chocolate. It's like crappy. I don't even know if it's even chocolate.
It's not even my dark chocolate.
I know it's, I love dark chocolate now. So like there's little things that we can begin to shift the way that our taste buds change, but a lot of the things with the sugary snacks is the emotional context that they relate to. So being able to stop after one, not always the easiest. Think of drinking water, trying different techniques to delay yourself from having another one. Or walking away from a table if they're out on a table. There's lots of things that we can look at around that. Maybe setting rules for yourself can help with that. But it's definitely not an easy feat, especially for someone like myself that has a wicked sweet tooth.
True. Okay.
Hopefully that helps.
It doesn't. Yell at us now. All right. Next up, we got Nicole. So Nicole's Rose is taking supplements. That's awesome. I know we've been talking about that for a while, so we're getting into it. Atta girl. Her bud is her workouts and her water consumption. I know Nicole's on a deload week, so she is absolutely loving that. And water consumption is something that we've been working on for a while. So that I'm glad to hear is coming along.
Yeah, because she went from 1 cup of water a day.
Yeah.
And
now we're at like 2 liters.
What? Oh, that's
we're doing
amazing.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, we're tracking it now so that we're working our way up to make sure we're staying at that. So yeah, we've been doing good.
That's awesome.
And then Thorn for Nicole is stress. And then she wrote LOL. So stress is one of those fun things. We talk about it a lot because everybody deals with stress. And having ways to deal with stress is the most important thing when it comes to stress. So starting to break that down means what do we do to relieve stress in our lives, right? So lots of people have different modalities, everything from meditation to yoga to breathing to drinking to sex to whatever else people
Journaling.
do, right? There's a million modalities for relieving stress. So I guess the biggest thing is, where do you feel is the most impactful way for you to deal with your stress? Where do you notice the most bang for your buck? Again, it's the same idea as whose was it we were talking about before? Chris's, I think. But really just kind of looking at what do we find that fills our cup the most, that is going to take the least amount of effort. Because again, when we are starting to look at creating different pathways to deal with stress, our body and our minds want to look for the easiest way to do something, right? So if something is super hard, if you're like, yeah, the best stress reliever for me is going skydiving. And you're like, well, I don't have a plane or a parachute, but every time I do skydiving once a year, boy, howdy, I feel free. That's obviously not the most effective way to deal with stress, because it's not feasible to be skydiving all winter long. So starting to look at the ones that are a little bit more feasible, the things that seem more tangible. So maybe it is the breathing exercises, maybe it is the journaling, maybe it's listening to music, or whatever that looks like for you, but something that we can do that isn't going to take a lot of effort to begin with. Because again, when we are starting habits, we want them to be so stupid easy that they feel natural when we start them, right?
Yeah.
That's every time we talk about creating habit formation, it's what can we do that's easy today? And then we can build on that. Because if we just start with the hard things, we're not going to be able to build on anything, because we'll have given up before we get to a point where we can build on.
100%. The other thing to think about too with stress is, you know, can I bring more humor into my life? Because I think that a lot of the time for stress, people will watch TV because I'm de-stressing at the end of the day. And then they watch stressful shit on TV. Or they consume food because that's how I deal with my stress. Like, I'm an emotional eater. I get it. Like, I get stressed out. Where's the first thing I gravitate towards? Some sort of food that's going to make me feel good, right? Like, that's part of the reason why, like, for my dinner last night, I wanted to cook spaghetti because spaghetti is like one of those comfort foods for me. And if I eat spaghetti, maybe I won't gravitate towards all those sweets like Ashley does, like I feel like, okay, if I can comfort myself with a healthier food option, maybe that's a nice idea to help deal with stress. But I feel like laughter is one of those things that we underestimate. Like, can you talk to a friend on the phone and laugh, or watch, a funny comedian or something that helps to immediately dissipate and change your energy? Because stress has a lot to do with the energy that we're holding in our body. So we can begin to shift that energy in the way that we feel about the energy, because stress is about our feeling, right? We feel stressed. We as humans are not stressed. We feel it. So it's an emotion and a feeling that we create. Can we begin to change our state and emotion around that? Can we begin to shift our focus and our awareness around that? That's something that I know for myself I've been really working on, is my mindset of focus. Whatever I'm giving focus to is what I'm giving life to. And the more I give life to it, the bigger it gets and the more all consuming it gets, right? If I could sit here and focus on all the little things that could cause stress in my life and to really ruminate on them. But at the end of the day, that's not serving me and that's not helping me progress and move forward. So where can I put my focus that's going to bring more into my life to allow me to overcome this stress, versus it being a focus on the stress itself? So for me, like Mike was saying earlier, when it comes to like scheduling, being around my family is really important to me. Laughter is really important to me. I love watching comedians. It's like one of my favorite ways to dispel stress, is just laughing it off, or a funny movie, or like, this is part of the reason why I love my like corny facts that I get every day, because they are just so awesome. And for a moment in the day, they take me out of my stress and go, did you know that a bear has 42 teeth? Like, for what purpose would I ever need to know that? I plan to never do dental surgery on a bear. But for for me, like those little moments that can bring me out of that stress state and to bring me back into self, that can be just like that nice, easy way to, how do I dissipate this? Or starting to find joy in the small things. Like maybe it's just like, oh, okay, I just that walk with my dog and that's so joyful. Like, how often are you present and enjoy in those moments? One thing to note with stress, and I just want to bring this to everybody's awareness, is that stress can spike um, our glucose in our bloodstream. So it's something to be aware of, is that when we're getting stressed, our glucose spikes, and then when we see those glucose spikes, it's actually causing retention in the body, versus that ability to relax and release. So something just to be aware of is that if you're constantly spiking your glucose throughout the day, just from your thoughts and the staying in a stress state, that might be impacting some of your results that you're looking for in regards to weight loss, and in regards to overall health markers, especially things like blood pressure, and cholesterol and all those other things that go into that.
I love that. And two last things that I wanted to talk about, just quick on stress. The first one is I've lost it completely. No, no, it is the idea of shrinking your world. So people that have high stress in their life, I challenge you to see where your stressors are coming from and see if you have any way to have any piece of control over those items in your life. If we are stressing about the next presidential election in the States, if we are stressing about what Justin Trudeau is doing in Canada, if we are stressing about things that we have no ability to control, then it's kind of like being on a treadmill. It gives you something to do, but you're not going to go anywhere with it, right? So the idea behind shrinking your world is, where can we put our focus and our attention that we can actually create impact within our lives? And if it isn't something that we can actively put our attention into and create impact in, then why are we giving it the attention and the focus that we are to begin with? And is that something that we can release? So I'm not saying this is applicable specifically for Nicole. I know you run a business. I know that stress comes up because we are entrepreneurs too. I get that. But for the rest of everybody that we're talking about here, and everybody, when we're dealing with stresses, are we stressing about things that we don't have control over? And if the answer is yes, then releasing some of that and realizing that if we cannot impact it and we are stressed about it, we will forever be stressed about it because we have no control over that situation. So is this something we can release? Right?
100%.
So that's the first one that I wanted to talk about. And I honestly forget the second one. So I'm just going to give you that one.
That works.
If it comes back to my brain, I will say it. But that was a more important one. It must have been.
All right, I got Christine's here. Christine says her rose got on my butt on the rower, feels good. I'm so happy that she did that. We had her power call the other day, and that was one of the things that we established together. And she rode 1,000 meters, which is pretty awesome. For just getting back on the rowing machine for the first time in a really long time. That's pretty dang awesome.
Okay, let's go. Yeah.
Bud is her workouts. Those are going really good. Her Thorn time change and getting up an hour earlier, trying to get to bed earlier, but not. It will get there. She says, you know what? That dang time change.
I feel that. We were what, 4 days into it now, and I am finally like recovered.
Yeah, well, and it takes a long time.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's only an hour, right? And that's like I keep telling myself, I'm like, it's just an hour. I'm making this bigger in my mind than it is, but I am like, my energy levels have been down all week. So I get that 100%. The biggest thing is finding your new normal for your routine. So again, we know that, clocks shift forward. We spring forward an hour. But again, getting back into your routine. So as hard as it is trying to make sure that we're going to bed at roughly that same time at the new times, and waking up at the same time again too. So just trying to find routine and schedule back to normal is going to be your best friend in these situations.
I was making a joke the other day that I prefer time change when I'm on vacation. I'm willing to deal with it then.
Already jet lagged. Yeah.
Okay, Megan is our last one that has sent it in. So her rose is eating better since Sunday, seeing sunshine and having nice weather is making me happy. And I've been taking my dogs out more. Nice weather does get us more active. We want to be outside.
Nice to take the dogs out when it's not -50.
right? Bud trying to figure out a new schedule now that her son's kickboxing has moved to different days. So what's happened in her schedule is that her son's kickboxing has actually moved to the days that she had planned to do her workouts in the gym. So now she's revamping her schedule and going, okay, where is this actually going to fit now? I'm kind of hoping that she can just swap, the old kickboxing days for workout days, but we'll see where that goes. Her
Life doesn't
thorn
always work out perfect, Kayla.
I know, I know. Her thorn is having to move around my routine and schedule for kids with a giant sigh. Um, you know what? As parents, I think we make a lot of sacrifices for our children. I do things for my kids that I would never do for another human, simply out of love and I guess dedication. What's the word?
Duty.
Duty. There you go.
It is out of duty for our children. 100% it is.
And the other thing is that we're often willing to do things for our kids that we won't put ourselves first for. Like we'll always put them first. So that's just something to be aware of, is like, okay, if I'm willing to do this for them, they might be willing to do the same thing for me. So how do I begin to show up in that way for myself as well sometimes? And that will also show them to learn to show up for themselves. So we begin to lead by example. And I think that can't be understated in the importance of leading by example. I hope that we have inspired our own children to begin to take control of their lives. I mean, like, we lead by example. I don't tell my kids what they can and can't eat, but my kids are not the kind of kids that will sit there and garble back an entire bag of candy. Like, it's March 15th now, and they are still eating candy from Valentine's Day. So they know moderation, and it's not because we've been like super strict and you super enforce it. If they ask if they can have a candy, I always say yes for the most part. But so like it's them practicing that moderation for themselves, going, oh, I only need 2 or 3. Like that's substantial for me. I don't need the entire bag. And that is way different of a mindset than I ever experienced growing up. For myself, it was like, how much can I get in my mouth at once? And then once I finish that, can I get more in there? Like, it was just like, pack it in, right? So it's that idea of leading by example is, this is how I operate. And this is how like Mike operates, and this is how we move through our lives. And just in that process, the kids have begun to pick that up.
Mm-hmm. No, I love it. And as far as moving a schedule around and finding what works for you, sometimes it is easiest. We have a giant calendar on our fridge, right? So we have this calendar on our fridge for more or less for the kids' activities. We also put the stuff that we are doing on there. So I find it easiest for me if I have everything laid out in one spot where I can see it all. So then I can really kind of plunk things around. So maybe it's in Google Calendars, maybe it's on a computer or whatever that is, but starting to get the bigger picture of maybe what the next month looks like. So then you can really start to pick apart your schedule and find the ways that you can make things work. And again, it is taking those or making rather those kind of sacrifices where it's like, okay, well, if I know that I have to be taking my son to his kickboxing at this time, I can fit my gym workout in the mornings if I can't get in the evenings anymore, or maybe it's lunch hours at work, or whatever that looks like. But finding what is going to fit within your schedule and then mapping it out, so then takes a little bit of the stress off of that too. Because if it's just in our mind and we're like, yeah, I got this figured out, then your mind doesn't stop thinking about it, because now your mind's trying to remember the new schedule, plus it's obviously has the memory of the old schedule. So there's sometimes that you can get that little bit confusion, especially when it's new. So having it down on a piece of paper, down on your phone, down on somewhere where you're going to see it pretty often, is a great way to kind of alleviate the stress around that. Because I know for myself, especially when the kids' activities change and when schedules change, there is that little bit of stress there. That's like, oh, am I going to forget I got to take my kid to one of their things, or am I going to miss something important that I was supposed to be doing because schedules change? So again, just trying to keep those stress levels low and trying to work with the new schedule. For me, it's easiest, and it might not work for you, but I'm going to suggest it anyways, is just having that schedule written down somewhere that you can actually see it pretty often.
So I love that you're saying the schedule thing, and it's actually really funny because before we did this recording today, I actually wrote on my thing for next week a task of how to make all my Google calendars overlay so that because I have stuff on a personal Google calendar, a business, and two different business Google calendars. And the business one's overlay, but my personal one doesn't overlay. So I'm constantly kind of switching between them. Plus I keep a actual physical what do you call it, day timer with me. My physical day timer is supposed to
One
be
of these.
I need my physical day timer. I would be lost without it because I write notes and all the things in it. However, having calendars overlaid, so like on Google, I don't know if you can do this on Apple, but on Google you can overlay family calendars so that you can input things for other family members to be able to see. So then you can start to navigate everybody's tasks and go, oh, okay, well, my spouse is going to be there on this day and my kids are there on this day. I know, like for us, one of the things we kept forgetting our daughter's singing lessons. And so I just went into Google Calendar and I made it as a never ending appointment in my Google Calendar. And then I set it as a remind me 1 hour before, because at 1 hour before I can figure out what I'm doing in order to make it happen. Whereas 10 minutes before, I'm panicking going, oh yeah, I forgot to do this. So you can change the setting in there to remind you as well. So that's been really helpful because as much as it's in my day timer isn't always on my person. So being able to have kind of, I use both. I can't commit to just the virtual yet. I'm not there.
Not there quite yet. Working on it.
Working on it, indeed. Anything
Love
else
it.
to add?
No, I think that's it for scheduling anyways.
Yeah, so that was all of our rosebud thorns that we received this week. So if you guys have some more that you want to send us, please feel free to send them. And if you have a friend that wants to send them in or you want to send them in, you guys can send them to us by email at info@ironbodycoach.com. We'd love to hear your rosebud thorns. So what's going well, what's coming along, and what's a pain in your butt. And we will definitely discuss them further on here with you. And hopefully you guys are getting some value out of this.
Yeah, have a great rest of your day, guys.
Bye for now.
Bye, guys.